Hi everyone, good evening. Welcome to the first upload on my YouTube video. This is very spontaneous and I'm totally loving it. My name is Oyinlola Adekogbe and I'm going to be calling this series Read With Me. I'm a fashion entrepreneur. I love all things lifestyle, fashion, skincare, food, exploring restaurants, traveling, and I'm not sure what this YouTube channel is going to be about. But right now, one of my goals for a while has been to read one chapter of a book every single day. I kept to that for a bit, but I deviated, I stopped. And so I decided I'm going to challenge myself and do a series where I'm going to read one chapter every day and upload it on my channel. So what this is going to do is going to help me achieve my goal, become a better person, learn, expand my mind, and then it's going to help beautiful women like me who want to read but maybe don't want to go through the hassle, prefer it in audio form, and then we can achieve this goal together, sister. So the first book I'll be reading is Atomic Habits by James Clear. I've read a few chapters of this book. If I flip through, you might find so right now I'm at chapter 7. And you can see that I already highlighted a few places, but I read this a while ago. So today I'm starting all over and I'm starting with you. And I hope I upload this video so you all can go with me on this journey. Everybody makes disclaimers on YouTube, so I don't know how that works, but this is not my intellectual property. This is just me reading a book that I find interesting and I think other people will benefit from. So I'm just going to do a brief introduction and maybe go through chapter 1 today. The title of the book is Atomic Habits. It says, Tiny Changes, Remarkable Results. An easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones by James Clear. So, easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones. On the first page, atomic, it defines the word atomic. Atomic means an extremely small amount of a thing. The single irreducible unit of a larger system, the source of immense power or energy. And then habit is defined as a routine or practice performed regularly, an automatic response to a specific situation. The table of contents, my story, the fundamentals, the first law, the second law, the third law, the fourth law, advanced tactics, and appendix. So, introduction, my story. On the final day of my sophomore year of high school, I was hit in the face with a baseball bat. As my classmates took a full swing, the bat slipped out of his hands and came flying towards me. Before striking me directly between the eyes. I have no memory of the moment of impact. The ball smashed into my face with such force that it crushed my nose into a distorted U shape. The Nigerian me is saying, it will not happen to me, blood of Jesus over my body, soul, and spirit, it shall not be me, I rebuke it in Jesus' name. Now that that's out of the way. The collision sent the soft tissues of my brain slamming inside of his skull. Yeah. Immediately, a wave of swelling surged throughout his head. In a fraction of a second, he had a broken nose, multiple skull fractures, and 2 shattered eye sockets. When he opened his eyes, he saw people staring at him, running over to help. He looked down and noticed spots of red on his clothes. One of his classmates took the shirt off his back and handed it to him. He used it to plug the stream of blood rushing down from his broken nose. Shocked and confused, he was aware of how seriously he had been injured. His teacher looped his arm around his shoulder and they began the long walk to the nurse's office. Across the field, down the hill, and back into school. Random hands touched his sides, holding him upright. They took their time and walked slowly. Nobody realized that every minute mattered. When they arrived at the nurse's office, she asked him a series of questions. What year is it? 1998, he answered. It was actually 2002. Who is the president of the United States? Bill Clinton, he said. The correct answer was George W. Bush. What is your mom's name? He stalled. 10 seconds passed. Patty, he said casually, ignoring the fact that it had taken him 10 seconds to remember his own mother's name. That's the last question I remember. Okay? My body was unable to answer the rapid swelling in my brain, and he lost consciousness. I'm so sorry. The details are not very pretty, so it's doing me one kind to use I. He lost consciousness before the ambulance arrived. Minutes later, he was carried out of school and taken to the local hospital. Shortly after arriving, his body began shutting down. He struggled with basic functions like swallowing and breathing. He had his first seizure of the day. Then he stopped breathing entirely. As the doctors hurried to supply him with oxygen, they also decided the local hospital was unequipped to handle the situation and ordered a helicopter to fly him to a larger hospital in Cincinnati. He was rolled out of the emergency room doors and towards the helipad across the street. The stretcher rattled on a bumpy sidewalk as one of the nurses pushed him along while another pumped each breath into him by hand. His mother, who had arrived at the hospital a few moments before, climbed into the helicopter beside him. He remained unconscious and unable to breathe on his own as she held his hands during the flight. While his mother rode with him in the helicopter, his father went home to check on his brother and sister and break the news to them. He choked back tears as he explained to his sister that he would miss her 8th grade graduation ceremony that night. After passing his siblings off to family and friends, he, the father, drove to Cincinnati to meet his mother. When his mom and him landed on the roof of the hospital, a team of nearly 20 doctors and nurses sprinted onto the helipad and wheeled him into the trauma unit. By this time, the swelling in his brain had become so severe that he was having repeated post-traumatic seizures. His broken bones needed to be fixed, but he was in no condition to undergo surgery. After yet another seizure, his third of the day, he was put into a medically induced coma and placed on a ventilator. His parents were no strangers to this hospital. 10 years earlier, they had entered the same building on the ground floor after his sister was diagnosed with leukemia at the age of 3. He was 5 at the time. His brother was just 6 months. After 2.5 years of chemotherapy treatment, spinal taps, and bone marrow biopsies, his little sister finally walked out of the hospital happy, healthy, and cancer-free. And now, after 10 years of normal life, his parents found themselves back in the same place with a different child. While he slipped into a coma, the hospital sent a priest and social worker to comfort his parents. It was the same priest who had met with them a decade earlier on the evening they found out his sister had cancer. As day faded into night, a series of machines kept him alive. His parents slept relentlessly on the hospital mattress. One moment they will collapse from fatigue, the next they will be wide awake with worry. His mother would tell him later it was one of the worst nights she has ever had. His recovery. Mercifully, by the next morning, his breathing had rebounded to the point where the doctors felt comfortable releasing him from the coma. When he finally regained consciousness, he discovered that he had lost his ability to smell. As a test, a nurse asked him to blow his nose and sniff on an apple juice box. His sense of smell returned, but to everyone's surprise, the act of blowing his nose forced air through the fractures in his eye socket and pushed the left eye outward. Ouch. The eyeball bulged out of the socket, held precariously in place by the eyelid and the optic nerve attaching the eye to the brain. The ophthalmologist said his eye would gradually slide back into place as the air seeped out, but it was hard to tell how long it would take. He was scheduled for surgery 1 week later, which would allow him some additional time to heal. He looked like he had been on the wrong end of a boxing match, but he was cleared to leave the hospital. He returned home with a broken nose, half a dozen of facial fractures, and a bulging left eye. The following months were hard. It felt like everything in his life was on pause. He had double vision for weeks. He literally couldn't see straight. It took more than a month, but the eyeball did eventually return to its normal location. Between the seizures and the vision problems, it was 8 months before he could drive a car again. At physical therapy, he practiced basic motor patterns like walking in a straight line. He was determined not to let his injury get him down, but there were more than a few moments where he was depressed and overwhelmed. He became painfully aware of how far he had to go when he returned to the baseball field 1 year later. Baseball had always been a major part of his life. His dad had played minor league baseball for the St. Louis Cardinals, and he had dreamed of playing professional too. After months of rehabilitation, what he wanted more than anything was to get back on the field. But his return to basketball was not smooth. When the season rolled around, he was the only junior to be cut from the varsity baseball team. He was sent down to play with sophomores on the junior varsity. He had been playing since age 4, and for someone who had spent so much time and effort on the sport, getting cut was humiliating. He vividly remembers the day it happened. He sat in his car and cried as he flipped through the radio, desperately searching for a song that would make him feel better. After a year of self-doubt, he managed to make the varsity team as a senior, but he rarely made it on the field. In total, he played 11 innings of high school varsity baseball, barely more than a single game. Despite his luster high school career, he still believed that he could become a great player. And he knew that if things were going to improve, he was the one responsible for making it happen. The turning point came 2 years after his injury, when he began college at Denison University. It was a new beginning. It was the place where he will discover the surprising power of small habits for the first time. Chapter 1 is still a bit, but I think we can run through how he learned about habits. Attending Denison was one of the best decisions of his life. Okay, I think I'll go back to I now. I earned a spot on the baseball team, and although I was at the bottom of the roster as a freshman, I was thrilled. Despite the chaos of my high school years, I had managed to become a college athlete. I wasn't going to be starting the baseball team anytime soon, so I focused on getting my life in order. While my peers stayed up late and played video game, I built good sleeping habits and went to bed early each night. In the messy world of college dorm, I made a point to keep my room neat and tidy. These improvements were minor, but they gave me a sense of control over my life. I started to feel confident again. And this growing belief in myself ripped into the classroom as I improved my study habits and managed to earn straight A's during my first year. A habit is a routine or behavior that is performed regularly and in many cases automatically. As each semester passed, I accumulated small but consistent habits that ultimately led to results that were unimaginable to me when I started. For example, for the first time in my life, I made it a habit to lift weights multiple times per week, and in years that followed, my 6 foot 4 inch frame bulked up from a featherweight 170 to a lean 200 pounds. When my sophomore season arrived, I earned a starting role on the pitching staff. By my junior year, I was voted team captain, and at the end of the season, I was selected for the all-conference team. But it was not until my senior season that my sleep habits, study habits, and strength training habits really began to pay off. 6 years after I had been hit in the face with a baseball bat, flown to the hospital and placed into a coma, I was selected as the top male athlete at Denison University and named to be ESPN Academic All-America team. An honor given to just 33 players across the country. By the time I graduated, I was listed in the school record books in 8 different categories. The same year, I was awarded with the university's highest academic honor, the President's Medal. I hope you forgive me if this sounds boastful. To be honest, there was nothing legendary or historic about my athletic career. I never ended up playing professionally. However, looking back on those years, I believe I accomplished something just as rare. I fulfilled my potential. And I believe the concepts in this book can help you fulfill your potential as well. We all face challenges in life. This injury was one of mine, and the experience taught me a critical lesson. Changes that seem small and unimportant at first will compound into remarkable results if you are willing to stick with them for years. I'm going to repeat that again. Changes that seem small and unimportant at first will compound into remarkable results if you are willing to stick with them for years. We all deal with setbacks, but in the long run, the quality of our lives often depend on the quality of our habits. With the same habits, you end up with the same result. But with better habits, anything is possible. Maybe there are people who can achieve incredible success overnight. I don't know any of them, and I am certainly not one of them. There wasn't one defining moment on my journey, from medically induced coma to academic All-American. There were many. It was a gradual evolution, a long series of small wins and tiny breakthroughs. The only way I made progress, the only choice I had, was to start small. And I employed this same strategy a few years later when I started my own business and began working on this book, Atomic Habits. How and why I wrote this book. In November 2012, I began publishing articles at jamesclair.com. For years, I had been keeping notes about my personal experiences with habits, and I was finally ready to share some of them publicly. I began by publishing a new article every Monday and Thursday. Within a few months, this simple habit of writing led to my first 1,000 email subscribers. And by the end of 2013, the number had grown to more than 30,000 people. Wow. In 2014, my email list expanded to over 100,000 subscribers, which made it one of the fastest growing newsletters on the internet. I had felt like an imposter when I began writing 2 years earlier, but now I was becoming known as an expert on habits. A new label that excited me but also felt uncomfortable. I had never considered myself as a master of the topic, but rather someone who was experimenting alongside my readers. In 2015, I reached 200,000 email subscribers and signed a book deal with Penguin Random House to begin writing the book you are reading now. As my audience grew, so did my business opportunities. I was increasingly asked to speak at top companies about the science of habit formation, behavior change, and continuous improvement. I found myself delivering keynote speeches at conferences in the United States and Europe. In 2016, my articles began to appear regularly in major publications like Time, Entrepreneur, and Forbes. Incredibly, my writing was read by over 8 million people that year. Coaches in the NFL, NBA, and MLB began reading my work and sharing it with their teams. At the start of 2017, I launched the Habit Academy, which became the premier training platform for organizations and individuals interested in building better habits in life and work. Fortune 500 companies and growing startups began to enroll their leaders and train their staff. In total, over 10,000 leaders, managers, coaches, and teachers have graduated from the Habit Academy, and my work with them has taught me an incredible amount about what it takes to make habits work in the real world. As I put the finishing touches on this book in 2018, JamesClear.com is receiving millions of visitors per month, and nearly 500,000 people subscribe to my weekly email letters. A number that is so far beyond my expectations when I began that I am not even sure what to think of it. How this book will benefit you. And that's the last part of this chapter. The entrepreneur and investor Naval Ravikant has said, to write a great book, you must first become the book. I originally learned the ideas mentioned here because I had to live them. I had to rely on small habits to rebound from my injury, to get stronger in the gym, to perform at a high level on the field, to become a writer, to build a successful business, to simply to develop into a responsible adult. Small habits have helped me to fulfill my potential. And since you picked up this book, I'm guessing you'd like to fulfill yours as well. In the pages that follow, I will share a step-by-step plan for building better habits, not for days or weeks, but for a lifetime. Excuse me. While science supports everything I have written, this book is not an academic research paper. It is an operating manual. You will find wisdom and practical advice front and center as I explain the science of how to create and change your habits in a way that is easy to understand and apply. The fields I draw on, biology, neuroscience, philosophy, psychology, and more, have been around for many years. What I offer to you is a synthesis of the best ideas smart people figured out a long time ago, as well as the most compelling discoveries scientists have made recently. My contribution, I hope, is to find the ideas that matter most and connect them in a way that is highly actionable. Anything wise in these pages you should credit to the many experts who preceded me. Anything foolish, assume it is my error. The backbone of this book is my 4-step model of habits: cue, craving, response, and reward. Cue, craving, response, and reward. And the 4 laws of behavior change that evolve out of these steps. Readers with a psychology background may recognize some of these terms from operant conditioning, which was first proposed as stimulus, response, and reward by B.F. Skinner in the 1930s and have been popularized more recently as cue, routine, reward in The Power of Habits by Charles Duhigg. Behavioral scientists like Skinner realized that if you offered the right reward or punishment, you could get people to act in a certain way. But while Skinner's model did an excellent job of explaining how external stimuli influenced our habits, it lacked a good explanation for how our thoughts, feelings, and beliefs impact our behavior. Internal states, our moods and emotions matter too. In recent decades, scientists have begun to determine the connection between our thoughts, feelings, and behavior. This research will also be covered in these pages. In total, the framework I offer is an integrated model of cognitive and behavioral scientists. I believe it is one of the first models of the human behavior to accurately account for both the influence of external stimuli and internal emotions on our habits. While some of the language may be familiar, I am confident that the details and the application of the 4 laws of behavior change will offer a new way to think about your habits. Human behavior is always changing, situation to situation, moment to moment, second to second. But this book is about what doesn't change. It's about the fundamentals of human behavior, the lasting principles you can rely on year after year, the ideas you can build a business around, build a family around, and build. There is no one right way to create better habits, but this book describes the best way I know, an approach that will be effective regardless of where you start or what you are trying to change. The strategies I cover will be relevant to anyone looking for a step-by-step system for improvement. Whether your goals center on health, money, productivity, relationships, or all of the above. As long as human behavior is involved, this book will be your guide. And we have come to the end of the reading chapter. Oh, that's not even chapter 1. That's the introduction. So we just finished the first chapter, which is the introduction. And this is Read With Me by Onye of Jedi, Oyinlola Adekobe. And the book we are reading, our first book, is Atomic Habits. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please click the link and subscribe. Tomorrow we'll be doing chapter 2, hopefully tomorrow, and then I'll come to like a routine as to how often I want to post weekly. 3 times seems appropriate. This was fun to do, and I hope we achieve our goals of reading 1 chapter every day or every other day together. Have an amazing night and a blessed week.